paint you a picture really quick. It's February 4th, 2007. I'm 10 years old. I'm riding a snowmobile outside my uncle's house. My dad's inside. I miss the pregame rituals of a Super Bowl. I come inside. I got all my snow gear on. We're sitting there. We're watching the game. Devin Hester returns it back for 92 yards. I remember exactly where I was, jumping up on the couch, jumping up and down. Dad looks at me and he goes, "What are you doing? Like, you're not in your own house. Like, you can't be jumping up at people's couches like that." I was like, Jim Nantz just talked about how the Colts are struggling with special teams, and this happens like right after he says it or as he's saying it. I was like, this is the greatest moment ever. So I just wanted to paint that picture for you. That's where I was, 2007. But you probably know exactly right where you were, right?
I do. Yeah. I was at one of my great friends' houses, in the city. We were all still single back then. And I was going to work later that night to do post-game reaction. Mark Silverman and I were doing post-game that night, but I didn't have any pre-game duties. And so I was at my buddy Brian's house with a bunch of friends, and we were watching the game. Watching pregame, having some fun in the afternoon, and then the game started, and I remember it vividly as well. The other thing that I always remember about that is all week leading up to the game, I kept saying that one of the prop bets I really, really liked was Devin Hester to score the first touchdown, and I was amazed at when the props came out at just how long the odds were on Devin Hester to score the first touchdown. It was 40-1. And it struck me as odd because you got to remember back in 2006, the 2006 season, like you said, Kyle, 2007, February of 2007. Back then, teams really weren't, in the practice of deferring the way they are today. Today, teams win the toss, they defer. Because they want to double up on offense. It's like a 2-for-1 in basketball. They want a chance to score going into the half, and then they want the ball coming out. That really wasn't a thing back in 2007, believe it or not, 2006. And so it struck me as odd that it would be 40-1 considering the season Devin had just had. And I'm thinking, man, if the Bears win the toss and they get the football, who knows? Well, another thing about those days is that you didn't have online, wagering. You had to use a bookie. That's what we used back then.
Yeah.
And my bookie wasn't offering 40-1 odds while Vegas was offering 40-1. My local bookie wasn't comfortable with that kind of exposure at 40-1. And I didn't like the odds he was offering me. And I never made the bet. I think he offered me 25-1.
Really?
And okay. I kept, yeah. And I'll never forget, kicking myself for at least not making the wager or finding somebody in Vegas to make the wager for me at 40-1. So in my euphoria, I was happy that the Bears scored an opening touchdown. And I thought, wow, what a great start to the Super Bowl. I'll never forget how upset I was at myself for not making that bet, because I literally said it every day that week we were on the air at night leading up to the Super Bowl, that how could you not bet the Bears at how could you not bet Hester at 40-1 as one of your prop bets? So that's my Super Bowl 41 story.
It's funny, though, that you say that, because I don't know if you follow Barstool at all on Instagram or anything like that, but they actually have it right now for the brackets of the type of bettors right now. I think maybe not Barstool. It might be BR Betting. BR Betting does it, and you have a bracket right now of the types of bettors. And one of the types of bettors, it's ranked number 4, is what you just said. I know. I told you it was going to happen. I should have bet it, right?
I should have bet it,
right? Yeah. That's one of those typical bettors. I should have bet that. Yes. Okay, but no,
it's the one I kick myself for most often, though. I mean, it's not even that, because I said it over and over again. I mean, all week I said, how could it be 40-1? And, I still, to this day, I think about it and I go, wow, man, if I would have just, you put 100 on that, and, it pays for a few years of losses. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Maybe it doesn't bring you back to even, but it comes back close. Right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
But all right. Well, just really quick, so people know who you are, if you want to introduce yourself a little bit to the people.
Sure.
Go for it.
My name's Carmen DeFalco. I host a late morning midday show here in Chicago on ESPN 1000 in Chicago, Monday through Friday, 10 to noon local time. I also host a gambling show on our radio station every Friday night and Saturday morning with Mike North, who's a very familiar name probably to the old school diehard Chicago sports radio listeners. Do some other podcasts as well, just to have fun with golf and things like that. I'm a bourbon aficionado and a fanatic, and that's sort of what I do in my spare time. Or sometimes people accuse me of doing it as my primary job, and they say I'm better than that. I'm better at that than I am talking sports. So be it. But yeah, that's another one of my passions: sports gambling, bourbon and rye whiskey. Lifelong Chicagoan, diehard White Sox fan. I love all the teams here except the Cubs. Diehard Sox fan, and I hope that this is the year for the first time since '05 that the White Sox win the World Series.
All right. Yeah, I've liked everything from that, hearing that, except for the Cub part. I think like that was the only one. But no, it's cool because you guys just got it just recently. I know with I believe sports gambling is now legal in Illinois, correct?
Yeah, it is. It was earlier. Well, actually, it's been about a year, believe it or not. I'm trying to think of the exact. I don't even remember now. I think we're coming up right about on the year anniversary. So yeah, sports gambling is legal here. There's still some drawbacks and some things that I don't necessarily like and I don't think Illinois sports fans like right now, especially with the success that the University of Illinois is having, and also Loyola. You can't bet on the college teams. I'll never understand it. I mean, they want to say it's got something to do with integrity of college sports. That
Yeah.
Who are we kidding exactly here? That's beyond ridiculous. So I wish, that's probably the biggest gripe people have right now. I think there are a lot of Illinois fans who feel like they've missed out this year on being able to bet on them. Or if you lived in the state and you followed them from, 60-1 down to 4-1 or whatever they are right now. There are a lot of Illinois fans that were hoping at some point they'd be able to get in on that wagering, get them as a longer shot, back in January, February, and that's not the case. But no, all in all, the rollout's been pretty good. And I think they said on Super Bowl Sunday alone, the state generated like $1.1 million in, tax revenue that I'm sure they'll waste in their infinite wisdom. But hey, at least they're generating it. Yeah, that was Super Bowl Sunday alone. So
yeah, well,
it's a long time coming.
Even imagine that though too, because we talk about all the time about you have to think about how much some of these states make just in gambling alone for sports. You have to think. Come on. I'm in Arizona. I don't hide it. I use something else. I use my bookie, right? Like it's a normal one you use. And you have to think about how many other people in Arizona, California, everywhere use these other sites, and how much money is being just lost in what these states could be making off these people. Me just being in school, right? Most of my friends are out of school. They're already graduated now, and I have several of them that have always, they're like sitting there going, hey, I just spent $1,000 this weekend on, the Super Bowl. Or like my buddy today, he called me up. He said, hey, we have games Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. He goes, this is the greatest sports week of your entire life. I wish I could be in Vegas. And he's already like on DraftKings and in PA. And he's like, I'm betting every day. Like I got stuff all over the place. And it's just crazy to see how much is being lost.
Yeah, and how much there is to be gained. I think that's why the states have pushed, states like New Jersey have been pushing for this for a long time. It makes too much sense. It really does. And there's, for a long time, sports gambling was very, very taboo, and it was sort of viewed as being only for people that are part of this sort of degenerate, seedy underground. And that's just not the case. Is there a dangerous element to it? Sure. There's a dangerous element to a lot of things that we do for fun or leisure in our lives. And if you're not careful, gambling can get you in trouble and does get people in trouble. But again, that's, where do you draw the line? If you say, well, if that's the rationale or the reasoning for not allowing legalized gambling, where do we start drawing that line? So I think that's where the gray sets in. I think that's why states and legislators have fought for some time, because they realize there's a great amount of tax revenue that they could generate from it. It's good for local businesses. It's good for the state if the money is used properly. Again, that's, in a place like Illinois, I guess we could have a different conversation about it ever being used properly. But the idea of it is good. And it's just not as taboo anymore. And it's everywhere. You are inundated with DraftKings and PointsBet and, all the other, Barstool just launched its sportsbook here in Illinois. And people, you were mentioning Barstool before. Dave Portnoy has been in town for a while, and it's all over his social platform, which, has millions and millions of viewers. And he's talked about being in Chicago for these couple of weeks, launching their sports book. So a lot of people are getting in on it. And this slowly but surely, I mean, you have to imagine that almost every state will have some form of legalized sports betting.
Well, yeah, it's I don't know, it's crazy to think just how far we've gone. You know what I mean? It's almost like it's funny. You have like the three. Okay, you have the three. What's the word I'm looking for here? You have like three different categories of things that are legal and not legal fully in the United States, right? You have prostitution, where you go to Nevada,
Yeah.
right? You have you have marijuana in, I believe now it's like almost half the states now in the country.
I think so. Yeah.
And it's weird that the number one is Hawaii. That's not, because that blows my mind still. And then you have sports gambling, and there's so much money to be made. And I mean, at least two of the three of those, there's so much money to be made. And maybe even all three, right? So it's just crazy to think. You're right. It's just there's so much to gain from it, and it's crazy to me. But Barstool. So I will say this: it was hilarious. I watched it. Dave Portnoy went into the office the first day in Chicago, and they said that they had the Farmers Insurance utility closet. That's where their office was.
Yeah, right. That's right. I saw that.
And that's hilarious, because he walks in, he goes, "We're a $20 billion company."
Right.
And I go,
I saw that.
That's pretty funny though. But well, good. Well, I'm glad we started talking about this college stuff first, because I was going to end with that, but we might as well start with it, because I like it's great, because obviously there's one other big thing we got to talk about, and that's all Bears. Which I apologize to the people that listen. This is going to be a very biased show for people from Chicago and Illinois area, because
that's what we do best.
Yeah, right. That's all we talk
Certainly
about.
what I do best. Yeah.
All right. So let me ask you this: I mean, obviously you probably want Illini probably to go all the way, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, one of my brothers went to the University of Illinois, so I've always liked cheering for them. I like to see the basketball program do well. I was on the air here back in 2005, doing nights back then on ESPN radio here in Chicago. And, that was like the most fun we'd ever had with the Illini. I was a kid back in 89 during the Flying Illini days, and that 2005 team was really the first time since 89 that the school kind of captured the imagination of most Chicago sports fans, where we were talking about them every night. Now here we are another 15, 16 years later, and it's happened again. And I think this team is really, really good. And I think the way they finished the season, I mean, they look like a buzzsaw right now, and I don't want to jinx them or piss off the Illini fans if they don't go as far as we all expect. But no, I really do think they are really good. I don't think there are many weaknesses. I think there's depth, and they're versatile, and they've got size in Kofi and in Georgie, obviously, when it comes off the bench. They got a pro in Ayo Dosunmu, who's going to be a first-round pick. They've got a freshman that's going to be phenomenal as he gets older and is already one of the best freshmen in the country. They got probably the best, he was probably the best perimeter defender in the Big Ten. I guess I wouldn't know necessarily where he ranks nationally, but Trent Frazier is probably as good as any guard defensively in the country. I mean, they're well coached. They really do not have many weaknesses as I see it. They got a brutal draw. The top half of that bracket is tough. I think if Oklahoma State plays as well as it played down the stretch and they run in Oklahoma State, I think that's tough. That's a tough matchup. I think Cade Cunningham's probably going to be the number one pick of the draft. And, come tournament time, I don't know that you ever want to run into those types of players. But I think Illinois is deeper than OK State. But, if they get past that game, if that is the matchup, I think they got a real good shot at getting back to the Final Four here and winning the whole thing. I think they're as good as anybody.
How could you compare them to that team in 2005?
That's a good question.
Because I mean, you had Darren Williams then, right? And,
yeah.
I mean, that name was, remember, I mean, he was known for taking flat-footed 3 shots. You know what I mean? Like that's what he was known for back in the day.
That team was great. I mean, that team had three guys that at the very least had a cup of coffee. Darren had a terrific career, obviously, in the NBA. Luther had hung around in the NBA for a little. D. Brown didn't play too much. He went overseas and he played for a little while. I mean, that team was really, really good, and I think there'd be some recency bias if, anybody was just gonna say, oh, well, this team is better. I mean, maybe they are, but I'm telling you that 2005 team was really good. and they had three, like I said, incredible athletes, two guys that played in the NBA for a while. I mean, they had some size and they had grit and they had guys who could really score. And D was as fast as anybody in the country with the ball in his hands. I mean, they could do it all. That game against Arizona, that Arizona team was good. And that game at the Rosemont Horizon, coincidentally enough, it was pretty much a home game for Illinois. When they won that overtime game, they came back from that deficit in the Elite Eight, and they won that overtime game. It was an all-timer for sports fans here in this town. So that team was really good. I mean, it's a good question. I don't know that I could give you a great answer on necessarily who's better, but I think I think I might feel better about this team, believe it or not, I might feel better picking this team to win it all than I ever did about that team. Okay. I thought that was a Final Four team, but I don't know why that is. Maybe it's just because this tournament, I don't want to say it's watered down, but let's face it. I mean, you could navigate it a little easier without some of the blue bloods, and because of COVID and just how different I think this whole thing is going to be, maybe I like their chance a little bit better. I'm not sure why I'm saying that, but I really do think that I think Gonzaga and Illinois are better than anybody. I think it's the two of those teams and everybody else, to be honest.
See, people have talked about it, and we're gonna get to you in a second here, because I'm not gonna lie. I think I know sports, and then you just started sitting there spitballing like where these guys were playing, and like maybe you've had it where you went to see that stuff, but then you got these guys' names from then and now, and like we're gonna get to that in a second because I need to dissect your brain a little bit about that. But first of all, Gonzaga though, I looked at with Gonzaga. I mean, their schedule, the majority of their schedule. I mean, they played Pepperdine, they played San Francisco, garbage teams, really. I mean,
once they get in conference, that's always been the knock. But they still had three pretty quality wins out of the conference though early in the year.
Yeah. And it just maybe for me, I'm also, because maybe I'm a Cubs fan. Maybe this is probably why, is that I love the underdog. So I would love to see them get knocked out in the second round. You know what I mean? I mean, something small that happens, right? Just something like that. That's the one team that I'm not the biggest fan of, but it's also because you always see them. You know, there's like the good 5 or 6 teams that you always see that are always in the tournament, ranked number 1, doing something. And I like Illini, right? I would love to see them, right? Because you haven't seen them do anything in so long.
Right.
So, it's different. But all right, to you now, how did you, is this something that you've learned through your career as like for your job? Like you study like players and moments and things in sports, or is this more experience? How do you able to remember all this stuff?
I don't know. I guess I've always had a little bit of a good memory for that stuff. Even when I was a kid, I liked looking at the back of baseball cards and memorizing stats and things like that. And, for whatever reason, it's always, I have the ability to retain that kind of stuff, that useless information. I'm a pretty good trivia partner because of that, sports and otherwise, to be honest. I don't think it's any sort of form of higher intelligence. I wouldn't say that at all. I just kind of I could just kind of remember things. And I've always been so passionate about sports, and I've done this for so long, and I watch a lot and I research a lot, that I just have I usually retain it. I mean, this job is mostly watching and researching. That's really what a lot of it is. People ask me that question all the time, whether you're on the air for 2, 3, 4 hours a day. People think that that's all your job is, and that's all the work that you do, that you go in and you're on the air for 3 hours and the rest of the day you're screwing around. And that's not the case at all. I tell people all the time, the job is, watching games at night and researching. And for the last 3 days, I've spent, I don't know how many hours poring over teams that are in the NCAA tournament and analyzing spreads and looking at KenPom statistics to try to figure out, where there's some value maybe in betting lines, and maybe some value in filling out a bracket, and so that we could bring this kind of information to our listeners. I mean, that's just kind of what we do. Yeah. The majority of my job is research and watching. And like I said, I guess I've always just kind of had a knack for retaining those types of things because I love sports so much.
Yeah, because I mean, I have it too, where I can tell you about some strange player or some strange play that happened. I'm good with those. But like after I sit there and read it a couple of times, like, I mean, I looked at like our next thing we're talking about is Andy Dalton becoming the the quarterback for the Bears here, because you either got him or Nick Foles, because Trubisky
Right.
just signed with the Bills.
Yeah.
And like I looked at his numbers in comparison to like Russell Wilson, right?
Hmm.
And I have it to my left, but I don't even have to look. It's the total yardage passing for both of them are within 300 yards. It's just that Russell Wilson has like almost 100 less interceptions, and he has almost like 80 more touchdowns itself
Right.
too. So, and then the
And
rushing
fewer
yards too.
games. And fewer games. So
Yeah,
let's look at yards per game. I guarantee you Russ is higher than Andy Dalton's in yards per game.
yeah. It's it is not good for this man. I'm not excited about this at all. He's got
No.
so 144 games Dalton's been played in with 142 starts.
And how many for
And
Russ?
let's see.
I'm guessing what? Russ is about 10 years in now. I'm guessing. Is that right? How long is Russ? 8 years maybe, I guess, for Russ.
Let's see. Okay, he has. Oh, actually, Howard, how many? How many did you say it was?
I'm guessing. I'm trying to think. He hasn't been in the league 10 years. I'll say 120 games for Russ.
So a lot more. His actual record is 98, 45, and 1.
Damn, Russ has okay. So he has been. Yes, that's yeah. Sometimes that's where my memory fails me. Sometimes is the timeline of certain guys. That's what you do get lost in a little one every once in a while. I'm like, wait, when did he come into the league?
Yeah.
So my math was a little off there. So how many games altogether for Russ? So Russ is about 150 games.
Yeah, a little less. Yeah, a little less.
A little less than 150 games.
Yeah, one. Yeah, so only a couple more than what Mr. Dalton has, and I want to pick your brain on that one too, because, okay, 2 weeks ago I had a podcast and we talked about Russell Wilson this, Russell Wilson that. We want him. How do we get him? What do we need to give up? And then I saw Dan Patrick's thing on Twitter, and he talked about that they were going to give up like 2 first-rounders, a third-rounder, and like 2 players, right? And in my head, prior to that, I sat there and went, I'm cool with giving up Khalil Mack. I'm cool with giving up, maybe a tight end, or you want to give up Gabriel, or like, shoot, I'll give you Foles, Trubisky, and I'll give you a couple linemen because they're not good. Like, I don't know, you know what I mean? So I want to pick your brain on it. What are your thoughts on this move, and and give me more of your give me your personal experience. Like, I was gonna say your professional one, but give me your personal.
No, I don't think that they were ever very close in being able to pull off a trade for Russell Wilson. They just don't have the assets. They did not have a quarterback to offer back, obviously. Look, Mitch Trubisky was no longer a Bear the minute they walked off the field in New Orleans. They didn't pick up Mitch's 5th-year option. Mitch, for at that moment, even though the league year started yesterday, at that moment, for all intents and purposes, Mitch Trubisky was out of contract. They couldn't offer him to anybody because he was no longer their property. Obviously, they don't want Nick Foles. They didn't have a quarterback to offer, and they're not picking in the top 10. They're not picking in the top 15. They're picking 20th. There's just no way Pete Carroll at 70, whatever the differences are right now between he and Russ and that franchise and Russ, there's no way that Pete Carroll at 70 trying to win another Super Bowl before he hangs it up for good is trading Russell Wilson, especially to a team like the Bears that can't offer a quarterback back. And I can't imagine he has any interest in developing a young quarterback now because, again, he knows that window is closing on them. He's got a quarterback that is a top 5 quarterback in this league that's probably going to go to the Hall of Fame, that wins 10 to 12 games for them every year. They're in the playoffs every year, in large part because of Russell Wilson. So whatever the amount of acrimony they have right now, the two sides, Pete Carroll's no dummy. And they've got a long off season to work it out, and I'm sure they will. So I never thought they were going to be able to pull off a trade for Russell Wilson. I thought that was pie in the sky from the word go. Now, did they sit down with John Schneider and Pete and try it? They did. The report was they met at the senior. They were at Trey Lance's pro day a couple of weeks ago in Fargo, and that they did meet. And the Bears offered the kitchen sink, but it's just there's nothing in there that's enticing enough.
Well, and there was also Seattle. A lot of money on the line there too, right? I think Seattle would have to pay a lot, right, at the end. For years to come. Their
dead cap. The dead cap for this year would have been they would have had to carry $39 million in dead money. which is significant. Yes. I mean, that's not easy for any organization to do for, you're carrying that money on your books and that player's not playing for you. So yeah, that's a significant, those types of things when it comes to the NFL contract sometimes can be sort of deal breakers in a sense, because it's not feasible for the team trading that player. Look, the Bears can't trade Khalil Mack because of the same reasons. Yeah. The dead cap hit is just it's astronomical, and they can't. You'd be crazy to carry that kind of hit on your books when that player's not playing for you, especially in a year where the salary cap went down. So that's another thing that made it very unlikely that it's nearly $40 million of dead money if they were to trade Russell Wilson before June 1st. It's a little bit more palatable for them if they do it post June 1. So maybe it happens in the summer if he gives them the impression, or he tells them, look, I'm not playing for you anymore, so trade me. I don't think it's going to ever come to that, but it'd be easier for Seattle to do it then because it's a significantly less dead cap hit. But the idea that they would trade him before June 1 to me is very unlikely because of that dead money.
Well, and you also look too like for the Bears, right? All right, so I saw today actually right before we jumped on Brett Urban, I forget I think Urban, right?
Brett Urban, yeah.
Yeah, so he's going down south to I forget where. I read it.
I don't know where he signed.
He signed like a 1-year deal. I think it was the Cowboys, I want to say.
That might have been.
And then, I thought this was a perfect time for us to do this podcast, right? Because you have Mitch going to Buffalo now. Matt Barkley leaves there. Okay, I'd take a Matt Barkley over Nick Foles. I mean, Matt Barkley's trash, but he's not much better. He's not much worse than like a Kirk Cousins. So. Okay, and then you have Kyle Long just came back, and now he's playing. Yeah. He's gonna get his with the Chiefs.
KC.
Kansas City's gonna beef up that line. I saw their line for them to win the AFC next year is it's like plus 250 right now.
Yeah, they're gonna be the heavy favorite again in the AFC.
I would take it. I think that's a great bet right now where it is, and then. The Bears let go Buster Screen officially, right? Yep. Obviously, that was already talked about. I thought that they should have let him go in the middle of the year.
You and a lot of others.
Couldn't believe that man kept playing.
Kyle Fuller's gone. They cut Kyle Fuller tonight. That's not a surprise.
No, he
saves him about $14 million. Yeah,
and he's getting old too, right? He's not as special anymore as he once was.
No, he was a prime candidate for it because look, they're up against it. They've got a trim salary. They knew it. We figured it'd either be Fuller or Hicks. Some people still think Akeem Hicks will go too, but I have a feeling that they were picking between one of the two, and they decided to let Fuller go. And yet, it's a $14 million savings, so it is significant for them.
I wouldn't mind. I mean, has Hicks played a full? I mean, he has all those weird seasons where he'll play a couple games and then he'll get injured, and it'll be something weird where he's still got the helmet on, he's walking around the sideline, and you're looking at him going, are you injured? Like, did you have to go to the bathroom maybe? And you just you were too late. Like, what happened? Like, did you have a Paul Pierce moment? Like, what's going on with you?
Yeah, I think the best years are behind him, and he has been. The injuries that happens. It's a war of attrition in the NFL, and is these guys the only position where you're going to age gracefully? Let's face it, is quarterback. No. That's it. I mean, everywhere else in the NFL, I mean, it's brutal. It's a brutal business. It's a brutal sport. Especially if you're playing on the line, on either side of the line. And, the law of diminishing returns, it creeps up on you. And once, you get to that precipice, they usually fall off of it pretty quick. So I do think Akeem's a very good player. I think his best years are behind him. And some still think that the Bears are going to clear up even more money by dumping Akeem. I'm not so sure about that. Like I said, I think they were probably picking between one of those two. And there was a very significant cap savings with letting Kyle Fuller go. So we'll see if Akeem goes too, but I'm not shocked that Fuller went tonight.
Yeah, I'm not shocked either, right? I mean, they got to make some kind of moves, right? Obviously, make sure that offensive line needs some serious help. I think first and foremost, right? I mean, you had the Fetty guy, right? He was a number 69.
They re-signed Fetty.
Who was the guy that was originally a defensive lineman? They converted him to an offensive lineman. Was that him?
No, Fetty was the one who they signed. Fetty was a first-round pick a few years ago of Seattle, and they did not pick up his fifth-year option, and he became free last year. The Bears signed him a one-year deal. They're keeping him. He actually played better when they bumped him out to tackle. You are thinking probably of
Coward,
Bars, maybe? Coward. Oh, Rashawn Coward. Yeah, Rashawn Coward. Yeah.
There it is.
No, their line, like the interior of their line is actually probably set and not too bad, believe it or not. And it played much better as they kind of solidified things in the second half of the year. They do need help at tackle though. They're going to be in the market here to draft the tackle for sure. Is it going to be in there? If they stay at 20, my guess is they're drafting the best tackle available. If they move up in the draft for a quarterback, they're going to have to find one later. And that's usually a more risky proposition. And you have to get a little luckier, I guess I'll say, to really hit on those later round tackles. But I would think that they're going to be in the market one way or another come draft time for a tackle without a doubt.
Yeah, I don't know. The Bears have a lot of answers to fill, I think, right? And they're probably not gonna answer them how we want them to answer them, right?
They never do.
That's Chicago sports, really, if you think about it.
I.e. Andy Dalton. Yeah, they never do.
No, come on. Like, I mean, it's just like with the Hawks, right? Like, I believe they had like it's always funny. Like, obviously, it was like Bufflin, right? I thought Bufflin was that one person you wanted to hold on to after 2010. That's the one person I thought like was the key one that you needed to keep and get rid of him. All right, like, cool. Or how it also worked.
Cap casualty.
Right?
It's when the cap, man. It's when it rears its ugly head in these sports with hard, the NHL, the NFL, when you're dealing with that hard cap, man, it rears its ugly head. And Bufflin, he got caught up in that. Luckily, they still won 2 more cups without Bufflin, but I love Big Buff too.
Oh yeah, I mean, how could you have not, right? This big dude especially in Vancouver when he had his arms up and he was skating across the thing. I will say this fun fact though, back to the Bears really quick, and we'll move on from the Bears here. I was playing baseball in Sycamore, Illinois, and that's in DeKalb County. And we were playing a travel game or something like that. I think my dad was the coach, and I was probably 7th grade, 8th grade. And I slid into second base. I knew I was safe. I did the Javi Baez movie before Javi Baez was Javi Baez. I kind of slid my hand around and slapped in. For the rest of my life, I'll say I was safe. The son was George McCaskey's son, and the head umpire behind the plate was George McCaskey because they umpire games together. And I got tossed out of the baseball game because I threw my helmet off, all mad and angry. So forever, I can say I got thrown out of a baseball game by George McCaskey. So
that's pretty good, actually, by the McCaskey family.
Yeah,
I tell that story forever. I love it. I didn't know they umpired.
Yeah, we didn't really understand it either at first, and then I remember my dad came to me right before the game starts. He goes, Bears? And I go, yeah. He goes, George McCaskey? I go, yeah, I've heard the name. Why? He goes, he's the umpire. And I'm like, no, you're messing with me, right? And he goes, no, like, look at him. I asked him his name. He said his name was George.
McCaskey.
Yeah, and then afterwards, he even asked him. He's like, why do you do this? He's like, oh, my son and I do it to bond together.
That's funny. Good for
them. I
got
tossed out of a baseball game by the old man too. I go,
yeah, go figure.
So he screwed me then, and he's still screwing me in the
future.
He's
still screwing you now, exactly.
Oh, it's horrible. But okay, I do want to bring up 2 more things here. We won't go too much longer here. I know you're a busy man, and this is great as it is so far because I'm gonna put your name out everywhere. I'm gonna be like, this guy, like Instagram, Twitter, or not Twitter. I don't do Twitter, but Instagram and Facebook all over the place. I'm gonna be like, you guys gotta check the show out. This is fantastic. You're not gonna love sports, but you gotta check the show. You gotta check the show.
That's right. You don't have to love sports. Yeah, it's all right.
Yeah. But no. So I saw the Blackhawks are playing a little bit better now, right?
Yeah.
Taves isn't gonna probably play this year, right?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, I don't know. There's all kinds of internet rumors out there too. I mean, but about what's going on with him, I don't know. They've been very quiet. I don't think he's going to come back. I do think they're going to get Kirby Doc back if they make the playoffs, and I think they will make the playoffs. Although they are in a brutal stretch right now. While they've been a nice surprise, we knew this was going to be a brutal stretch. They've had all these games here. They're in the middle of a stretch of 9 of 11 games against the Lightning and the Panthers, and the Lightning and the Panthers are clearly a step up in class on the Blackhawks right now. And they've struggled. They've blown leads in a lot of them, which is even more disappointing maybe. But I just think that you can see the difference in class between the two in a lot of these games. So they got 4 more, 1 tonight and then 3 after this, where you still have, 4 more games against Tampa and Florida. And then the schedule eases a little. So if they can hold on and find a way to squeeze out a couple more points here or there over these next 4, I think they'll find a way to make the playoffs. It's going to come down to, in all likelihood, the Hawks or Columbus for that fourth and final spot. They realigned the divisions, obviously, for COVID this year, and the top four in each division are going to go, and the Hawks are fourth right now. So they're clinging to, I think, about a 4-point lead over Columbus. So I thought they'd be one of the worst teams in the league, to be quite honest, especially without Taves, especially without Kirby Doc. They've missed Dylan Strome here for some time now because of an injury. But so I've been pleasantly surprised, especially with some of their young guys. And it'd be nice for them to get to the playoffs just so the young guys can get a little experience in the postseason.
So it's a little rougher for me here. So being in Arizona to watch Bears games, we have to do a stream box player from my cousin's house so I can watch a streaming of a 720 on my TV here because I'm not going to pay for Sunday ticket. I'm in college. I got no money, man. Like, all right, like it's not happening, right? Hockey games are a little tougher to come by, right? Because
I bet.
And what also too it is it's the temperature here, right? I can sit in shorts and a t-shirt and the doors are open all year round. So your mindset, and I grew up on hockey, right? I think honestly radio and hockey I think is like dream job in the world, right? To do a hockey game on the radio, like with Weideman and
Troy.
Yeah, that's just fantastic. I just loved it, right? Because you're painting a picture for someone going back and forth, right? You're driving up to Wisconsin with your pops, and it's like 9:00, and they're playing like on the West Coast against like Vancouver. But anyways, the Blackhawks, it just is tougher because it's not the same weather as Illinois. So you kind of like aren't like so intrigued and like let's sit down and watch this hockey game. Obviously, playoffs are watching all of it, right? But I'm not like I'm not a fair weather fan. Like I wanted them to lose actually.
Edmonton.
Yeah, I wanted them to lose because then we could have had a chance of getting that higher draft pick. And instead, we got screwed and we decided we were going to win against McDavid. Like
yeah. I know, and then just to get your clock cleaned by Vegas, which we knew that was going to happen.
And Vegas you gotta love too that they kind of had it coming to them too with Lehner being the goalie too, and after that gave him up throughout the middle of the year, pretty much because they kind of did it more as like a give up almost thing, right? Because they kind of were like, we're not going to.
No, yeah, no. Before COVID, the shutdown happened after the trade deadline. You're absolutely right. I mean, they had no use for Robin Lehner anymore, to be honest. And it was good for Robin Lehner to get to go to play in a place like Vegas that was going to go to the playoffs and had more of a shot. No, I mean, there's no doubt that it was the right move at the time. And then 2 weeks later, 3 weeks, maybe just after, I don't even remember. I want to say the trade deadline was late Feb. So yeah, a couple weeks later, we go into full shutdown mode. So yeah, you really can't blame them for that. You're right.
Yeah, that's that's a funny one to me.
Yeah.
But all right, so my only other thing I want to bring up to you right now, what are your first round 64? What are your locks? You got something?
Ooh, locks. I got a lot of chalk in my bracket, which is usually not a good thing in this tournament. Look, other than your high seeds moving on, I instead of locks, I mean, there's a few kind of like sneaky upset things that I think could happen. I don't even know if it's so sneaky anymore here. I mean, I think everybody is on Ohio. It scares me when everybody's on something and I like something. A lot of times I just go the other way because I don't want to be with all the public. But I just think for Virginia, I mean, they're getting into Indy tomorrow. They've got a clear protocol tomorrow. They have to test again after midnight. They'll practice once on Saturday, and then they have to play a game. And Ohio's pretty good. Like Ohio gave Illinois a game earlier this year.
Yeah.
They got a guard. They got a guard that can really play and can really score. And they gave Illinois a game. And Ohio's a 13 seed that I think is going to give Virginia a lot of trouble. Now watch Virginia win by 30. But I just think the circumstances surrounding this thing for Virginia, logistically, I think it's going to be awfully tough for them. So, I like Ohio for an upset. The whole world is on Winthrop. I'm not quite as convinced, but Villanova did not play well down the stretch, and they lost their best player and one of the best players in the Big East. So without Gillespie, I can see why, just looking at the way Villanova played in the last couple of weeks, that, you got a real popular 12-5 upset here with Winthrop. Winthrop's got one loss this year. Now the conference they play in, which they play, is not representative of what a team like Villanova plays on a week in, a week out basis, but 23-1 for Winthrop. So I know that's a real popular pick. I'm not quite as crazy on that one. A lot of people also really like Colgate over Arkansas. I'll just say that I would tread lightly on that one too. Look, Arkansas's got a lottery pick. Arkansas is, plays in a much tougher conference, even though that conference was down considerably this year. But anytime you get a player, you get a team like Arkansas with a couple of high caliber players, including a guy who's probably going to be a lottery pick this year. And it's a step up in class for Colgate. I'm not as bullish on Colgate as everybody. If anything, the total in that game is an interesting one to look at because they're both very, very explosive offensive teams. Although the value in that is probably a little bit, you probably missed the boat on the value because that line got bet out by the Sharps by a couple of points pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And then, I think Texas can make some noise, believe it or not, in this tournament. If you're looking for a little bit of a sleeper, maybe to make a run, I think Texas could make some noise. I think Oklahoma State played great down the stretch. I hope they don't beat Illinois, but you got maybe the number one pick in the draft coming up here. Oklahoma State could be a tough out. I think Kansas could be a tough out too, especially if McCormack is going to play. David McCormack's probably good to go this weekend. Looks like, and will be able to play. And you talk about a team that did not look good in December and January, but flip the switch a little bit. I think Kansas has got right at a good time, and they're obviously extremely well coached. And nothing's going to surprise Bill Self and his staff, and he'll know how to get his guys ready. So I wouldn't be shocked if Kansas makes a little mini run in this thing too.
What's your thought on Loyola Chicago? You think
Loyola.
You think that we kind of already had our thing with them a few years ago, and now it's going to be more.
Look, they got a brutal draw too. They're part of that top of that bracket with Illinois. I do think they're going to beat. Look, Georgia Tech is going to play without its best player and without the ACC Player of the Year. Had Moses Wright not been, had he not been tested positive for COVID and had he played, that was going to be a tough game for Loyola. I thought they kind of got screwed a little bit in their seeding, having to play Georgia Tech, probably the best team in the ACC this year. But without Moses Wright, who's the Player of the Year, I have a feeling that Loyola is going to win that game. You talk about a betting line that went nuts. I mean, the minute that news came out, that line went from about a 2.5 point spread. Loyola favored by 2.5 out to 5.5. So You saw a pretty big swing there without Georgia Tech having to play without its best player. So I do think Loyola will win. Loyola is number one in the country in adjusted defensive efficiency on the KenPom rankings. So they can guard, and GT having to play without its best player, I think, is significant. So I think Loyola is going to win that first game, but I don't think they're going to have much of a shot against Illinois they'd really have to slow it down and just guard unbelievably well. I just don't think they're going to be able to have the firepower to ultimately keep up with Illinois. So, yeah, I don't think we're seeing a repeat of a couple of years ago where Loyola got to the Final Four.
Yeah, and then it's also crazy too to think, right? We have no Duke. We have no Kentucky.
Yeah, no Duke. Yep. Nope.
And those are the two teams that it's not even that fun to see in North Carolina. I'm fine with Wisconsin beating North Carolina in the first round, and it's not even going to be as sweet as it normally would be because normally you see North Carolina a little bit further on, and then you like to see them get beat. No one likes North Carolina. The only other one that I saw that I liked. Okay, I'll give you one of my guys or one of my things I picked. North Texas over Purdue.
Wow. Okay.
I like North Texas. I was looking at the line earlier. It's probably different for you over there than me here.
Purdue's a 7.5 point favorite, I think.
Yeah, I like just taking North Texas straight up, right?
You scare me. I got Purdue in the Sweet 16.
Oh God, I took North. What's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? It's gonna be like 30 points, and they're gonna get their ass. It's gonna be horrible.
I love the tournament.
And then the only other thing that I put in two bets. I put in that it was plus 1,500 for a fourth seed to win the championship.
Ooh, I like that.
And then I also put $2 down to win 1,200. I had to go for the first stimulus check, and it was for a 16th seed to win it all. It's a garbage bet. You could do, you do the minimum. You think about it, you do the minimum bet for $2, might as well.
The 4 seed one's interesting at those odds. If I had to pick one, it'd be Oklahoma State. Looking at the 4 seeds, in my opinion, maybe Florida State, but I doubt it. Florida State can really score, but yeah, if anything, maybe Oklahoma State continues this run. Look, Oklahoma State since February 22nd, Oklahoma State has beaten 6 ranked teams, and they lost by 3 to another ranked team. I mean, like, they're playing great right now. And when you got a player as good as Cade Cunningham, you could go a long way. So if anything, maybe OK State just continues this heater, and that'd be a nice payday at 15. What was it? 15-1, you said?
Let's see. I got it right here. Fourth seed. Oh, sorry. It's a plus 1,000.
Okay. Plus 1,000. That's, hey, you take that, baby.
So I have that
Nothing
one.
wrong with that.
I have
Nothing
actually
wrong with that at all.
I have a couple other weird ones. I like the little prop bets. 5 buzzer beaters. I say there's gonna be 5 total buzzer beaters for the entire.
Ooh. Wow.
But wait, it's a kicker. It's for the first round only though, of the 64.
Yeah. Boy, 5s, and you went over.
I just took 5 on the dot.
Oh, you took 5 on the number. Okay.
Yeah, so it's a plus 4,000.
That's a lot of buzzer beaters. That's a lot. Plus 4,000. I was gonna say the odds had to be pretty good on that.
Yeah, like I did a.
All right, I'll cheer for you on that.
Low risk bet on that one. And then, yeah, it was a plus 60,000 for 16 to win.
Wow,
But,
yeah, plus 60,000.
All right, so I took North Texas. Actually, sorry. So I told you I took North Texas, but I lied to you. I took Purdue.
Okay, good.
I took Purdue. I got West Virginia. I did a 10-team parlay.
Okay.
Yeah, I did Illinois, Ohio State, Baylor, Loyola, Wisconsin.
Are those just all first round wins? Parlayed money line wins?
Yeah, these are all just all money line first round.
Got it.
Ohio. I have Ohio, so you told me Ohio.
There
so
you
I
go.
picked Ohio.
Yeah.
I also took Missouri against Oklahoma.
That could be a good game, Missouri, Oklahoma. I've got Oklahoma, but that's a coin toss. I think the St. Bonaventure LSU game is going to be great too. That's a Saturday game. That's one of those 8-9s. I think that'll be the best 8-9 matchup. It could have been Loyola and GT had it had not tested positive for COVID, but I think the LSU St. Bonnie's game is going to be great for the 8-9 matchup. All
right. I like those. All right, you ready for this? I'm going to give you my last 3 bets, and then we'll wrap this sucker up right here. I had free money to play with, so I put in the free money. I took Oral Roberts over Ohio State at plus 1150. I took Cleveland State over Houston at plus 1250. And I took Grand Canyon University plus
over
900
Iowa.
Over Iowa. I hate Iowa for all sports, so I have to. But it was all free money. It was all free money, though.
You might as well for free money. We talked to Grand Canyon head coach Bryce Drew earlier this week on our show, actually, who's a little bit of a local legend around these parts because of his playing days at Valpo and the famous shot against Ole Miss. I mean, that was a 215, if I'm not mistaken. Valpo was a 15 seed, I'm pretty sure. And Ole Miss was a 2 seed. It might have been a 314, but I think it was a 215 upset when Bryce Drew hit the winning shot. And that had to be, if I'm guessing, it was 1997, maybe 1998 when Bryce Drew hit that shot against Ole Miss and upset them. It was a great Cinderella story for Valpo that year. And of course, his brother's the head coach at Baylor. And they're phenomenal. But yeah, we had Bryce Drew on this week. He's very proud of what they're doing in Phoenix there at Grand Canyon for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I have a friend there, and actually, it's a funny story. I'll tell you real quick here. So, she went to GCU for her undergrad and for her graduate school, and it was her dad was on the TV, like he was sitting on the sideline, and they took a picture of him, or they had a video of him, and they said that he was like some coach or something like that, or some player or some coach that played for the Suns. And it was her dad, and he's sitting there. He goes,
I never played for the Suns.
He goes. I guess like a 40-some-year-old looks pretty good. I'm guessing. Like he goes, I never played for the Suns, and I'm not good enough. But hey, cool. So
that's funny.
It's a funny stuff. But hey, I appreciate you coming on. But we're gonna spread your name all over the place on Instagram and Facebook. So
please
get ready for those. If you can share those, that'd be great. But
I absolutely will.
But I appreciate you coming on and giving your knowledge, and especially those picks too, because I'm gonna call up my buddy right away and say, hey, like he said ride this one, but he said ride this one, but ish, and Colgate, be careful, but maybe go for the total. Yeah,
so absolutely.
I wrote them all down right away. But I appreciate you coming on, and I look forward to talking to you soon.
Thanks, Kyle. Good talking, man.
All right.